The universe, as it turned out, wasn't just indifferent to humanity's existence. It was actually quite annoyed by it, much like finding a raccoon rummaging through the cosmic garbage bins of spacetime. The elder species of the Galactic Confederation had discovered Earth and promptly labeled it, quaint but problematic, 53 standard cycles ago. Humanity had achieved faster-than-light travel through what the Confederation's scientists described as the most unnecessarily complicated and potentially catastrophic method possible. Humans called it the Allure Drive. Everyone else called it that terrifying space-time blender the monkeys built. Nevertheless, it worked, and suddenly the galaxy had to deal with yet another species of bipedal mammals with delusions of grandeur. The diplomatic exchange hall on Proxima Station gleamed with the artificial polish that only comes from knowing important people will be judging your interior decorating choices. Representatives from 37 spacefaring civilizations mingled, floated, or oozed, depending on their particular evolutionary path, through the grand chamber. The lighting had been calibrated to accommodate 16 different visual spectrums, which meant everyone looked terrible in slightly different ways. And so, I told the Kazkathic ambassador, droned a gelatinous diplomat from the methane-breathing Bovian collective, that if they wanted the mining rights to the Epsilon cluster, they would need to provide at least 3 more interpretive dance performances explaining their cultural attachment to mineral extraction. The ambassador from Earth, professionally smiling while mentally calculating how many drinks would be socially acceptable at this function, nodded politely. This was diplomacy, smiling through transparent nonsense while trying to prevent interstellar war. The human had perfected what diplomatic veterans called the nod and plate, a technique primarily developed during parent-teacher conferences and now deployed across the stars. "Fascinating," the human replied, having mastered the art of sounding interested while thinking about literally anything else. The Confederation's emphasis on cultural expression as a component of resource allocation continues to be illuminating. What the ambassador didn't say was that most humans found the Confederation's bureaucracy to be a nightmarish blend of the DMV, tax season, and a particularly pedantic book club, all rolled into one cosmic joke. But humans had learned quickly, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. When in a galaxy of technologically superior species, smile and pretend their systems make sense. This careful dance of diplomatic niceties would have continued indefinitely had the Verloc not chosen that exact moment to announce their latest pacification effort. The holographic display materialized in the center of the hall, causing several drinks to be spilled, and at least one methane breather to emit a startled puff of flammable gas. The imposing Chittis form of High Commander Xerax of the Veloc's Dominion appeared, mandibles clacking with what passed for joy in their species. "Attention, civilized beings of the Confederation," the insectoid commander announced, voice translator failing to hide the clicking undertones. "The Dominion is pleased to report that we have successfully pacified the unruly human settlements in the Teddy system. Their pitiful defenses proved inadequate, as expected of such a primitive species." The room went silent. Even the perpetually chattering Bovian diplomat ceased its bubbling monologue. All eyes, optical senses, and sensory appendages turned toward the human ambassador. "Excuse me," the human said, voice carrying through the suddenly quiet with remarkable clarity. "Could you please clarify what you mean by pacified?" The Veloc commander's compound eyes gleamed with something between amusement and disdain. "Is the human translation matrix malfunctioning? We have neutralized your outposts, removed them. They were impeding proper development of resources beneficial to advanced civilization." "Those were civilian colonies," the human replied, still maintaining that diplomatic smile that now seemed frozen in place. With families, children, over 30,000 people. The Vilsack commander waved a clawed appendage dismissively. Yes, yes, very unfortunate, but the Dominion had filed Form CR 7291B for intent to utilize underdeveloped regions with the Confederation Resource Management Committee. It was approved last cycle. We never received notification of any such form, the human said. A lanky bureaucratic Flexen shuffled forward, 7 of its 12 limbs clutching various data tablets. Actually, the notification was properly delivered to Earth's Central Processing Facility, as required by Confederation procedure. Section 947, paragraph 32, subparagraph Q clearly states that all member species must check their designated communication hubs no less than every 73 standard hours. That's 3 Earth days, the human translated. You sent a notification that you were planning to attack our colonies and gave us 3 days to find it in what I can only assume was buried under 177,000 other forms. Procedure is procedure, the Flexen sniffed, or at least made a sound approximating a sniff through its breathing spiracles. The Vilsack followed proper protocol. The human ambassador looked around the room, noting how many of the gathered diplomats were nodding in agreement with the Flexen. 53 years of playing by the Confederation's labyrinthine rules, of being the polite newcomer, of laughing at jokes that weren't funny, and pretending that filling out forms in triplicate was a reasonable way to conduct interstellar relations. All of it suddenly seemed like a cosmic-scale practical joke. This is the 3rd human colony the Vilsacks have pacified in the past months, the ambassador said, voice now lacking any pretense of diplomatic pleasantry. Each time you've hidden behind your bureaucracy. Each time we filed complaints through proper channels. Each time those complaints have been lost or delayed due to processing requirements. The Vilsack commander's mandibles clicked rapidly in what humans had learned was their version of laughter. Perhaps, if your species were more adept at navigating civilized systems, you would not find yourselves at such a disadvantage. Evolution favors the administratively competent. The human ambassador reached into a pocket and withdrew a small communication device. One button press, and a direct link to Earth's Unified Defense Command opened. The ambassador didn't bother with privacy. This is Ambassador, Diplomatic Clearance Alpha 79er, transmitting authorization code Omega Protocol. The Vilsacks have destroyed confirmed civilian casualties in excess of 30,000. This follows the attacks on Epsilon Eridani and Prion colonies. Requesting immediate implementation of Contingency Barbarossa. The device emitted a brief acknowledgement tone. The ambassador pocketed it and looked up to find the entire hall staring, a mixture of confusion, amusement, and in a few cases, the first stirrings of concern on alien faces. "What was that?" asked the Jovian representative, its gas-filled environmental suit rippling with curiosity. "Some kind of emotional release ritual. We understand primitive species often need catharsis in times of stress." "That," the human replied, "was me informing my government that the time for playing nice is over." The High Chancellor of the Confederation, a wizened Arcturian with skin like ancient parchment, floated forward on his gravity disk. Now, Ambassador, let's not be hasty. I'm sure we can schedule a committee to review the procedural aspects of the Vilsack's resource acquisition strategy, perhaps in the next standard cycle. We have an opening on the 47th rotation." The human smiled, not the diplomatic smile, a different one, the kind of smile that sent shivers down the spines of those species fortunate enough to have spines. "Chancellor, with all due respect, which at this point is minimal. Humanity has tried to play by your rules. We've filled out your forms, we've attended your cultural sensitivity seminars, we've even pretended that your species' universal translator joke subroutines are funny, which, believe me, they are not. A gasp rippled through the assembled diplomats. But now, the human continued, you've mistaken our courtesy for weakness, our patience for inability, our restraint for limitation. So let me be perfectly clear as I deliver my government's official response to these attacks. The ambassador's voice carried across the hall without raising in volume, yet somehow everyone heard it with perfect clarity. This is Earth's final warning. Stop attacking our colonies, or we stop pretending to be civilized. The Vilsack commander's mandibles clicked rapidly again. Is this a threat from humans? How charmingly primitive. What will you do, throw rocks at our battle cruisers? Several diplomats laughed nervously. The Arcturian chancellor waved his ancient hands placatingly. I am sure the human is simply experiencing emotional distress. Their species is known for their outbursts. Actually, the human replied, checking a small timepiece, in approximately 45 seconds you'll receive your answer. As if on cue, the massive holographic displays throughout the diplomatic exchange hall flickered, security overrides engaging as every communication channel in the station was simultaneously accessed. The face of a stern human in a military uniform appeared on every screen. This is Admiral Chang of the Earth Defense Fleet. To all Confederation species, the destruction of our colonies constitutes an act of war under both Earth and Confederation law, Section 1293, Paragraph 7, for those who appreciate citations. We have attempted diplomatic resolution through your channels without success. Therefore, effective immediately, Earth is invoking Article 17 of the Confederation Charter, the right of proportionate response. The Flexen bureaucrat began frantically searching through tablets. There's no such article. I've memorized all 9,347 articles of the Charter. Check the appendices, the human ambassador suggested mildly. The ones we added when we joined, the ones none of you ever bothered to read because, and I quote multiple representatives, what could primitives possibly contribute to galactic law? The Admiral continued, a demonstration of Earth's response capabilities will commence in 30 seconds. We suggest all Confederation observers direct their attention to the uninhabited moon of Verlon Prime. That is all. The transmission cut. The Vilsack commander's compound eyes widened in what might have been the first expression of genuine concern ever observed in their species. This is absurd, the commander sputtered. The humans have no military capabilities that could possibly. Whatever the commander was about to say was cut short as new images appeared on the holographic displays, this time showing a real-time feed of the barren, cratered moon orbiting the Vilsack's home world. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, without warning or visible beam, a perfect hemisphere of the moon simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no dramatic effect. One instant it was there, the next, a perfect semicircle remained, the newly created flat plane glowing cherry red at the edges. Dead silence filled the diplomatic exchange hall. The human ambassador sighed, looking genuinely regretful for the first time. We really didn't want to do this, you know. We were quite happy playing the role of the eager newcomers, learning from our advanced galactic neighbors. It was so much simpler. What? What was that? The Chancellor whispered, his ancient voice trembling. That, the human replied, was a single ship using what we call a controlled demonstration device. The actual weaponry is considerably more impressive. We've had it for about 30 Earth years. Sorry, that's roughly 15 of your standard cycles. We just didn't see any need to mention it. Didn't seem diplomatic. The Vilsack commander's image had frozen, mandibles half extended in shock. Oh, and before anyone gets any ideas, the ambassador added casually, Similar ships are now positioned near the home worlds of every Confederation founding species, just as a precaution. You understand, we primitives do so value our safety. The human glanced around the room, taking in the shocked expressions of 37 species who had just collectively realized they had been condescending to a wolf in sheep's clothing. "Now then," the ambassador said brightly, reclaiming a nearly empty glass from a nearby tray, "shall we discuss those colony reparations? I believe we can skip the interpretive dance requirements this time. The thing about threatening to unleash hell upon your galactic neighbors is that it tends to make subsequent diplomatic functions awkward. The human ambassador discovered this firsthand when entering the Confederation Emergency Council, Chamber 3 standard days after what was now being called the lunar incident. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Appendages were withdrawn, environmental suits seemed to contract slightly, as if their occupants were instinctively trying to make themselves smaller targets. The ambassador smiled pleasantly and took the assigned seat at the massive quartz-like table, pretending not to notice when the representatives from the Jovian moons scooted their hover chairs a conspicuous meter away. "Well," wheezed the Arcturian chancellor, breaking the uncomfortable silence, "this is certainly an unprecedented situation. The Council has convened to discuss recent demonstrations and to facilitate a peaceful resolution to current hostilities." The Vilsack representative, notably not the same commander from the previous transmission, clicked his mandibles nervously. "The Dominion wishes to express its reconsideration of resource extraction priorities in human-occupied systems." "How magnanimous of you," the human replied, voice dripping with enough sarcasm to fill a small ocean. "And the reparations for our destroyed colonies." The Vilsack representative's compound eyes darted around, seeking support from fellow council members and finding none. "The Dominion feels that perhaps a mutual de-escalation would be in everyone's best interest before discussing such details." "I see," the human said. "So you'd like us to power down our defensive systems before you've even acknowledged responsibility for murdering 30,000 civilians. How very Vilsack of you." The Chancellor raised his wizened hands. "Perhaps we should establish some basic facts. The human demonstration was most impressive, yet questions remain about humanity's true capabilities and intentions." A blue-skinned Regalian analyst floated forward, tentacles wrapped around a data sphere. "Our preliminary assessment suggests the lunar demonstration utilized some form of matter displacement technology previously unknown to Confederation science. However, we question whether this represents the full extent of human military capacity or merely a carefully orchestrated singular device." The human ambassador smiled. The expression contained no warmth whatsoever. "Do you know why we didn't reveal our true technological capabilities when we joined your Confederation? It wasn't fear or strategy. It was simple courtesy. When invited to dinner, one doesn't begin by showing the hosts how much stronger, faster, or smarter one might be." "It's rude." The Regalian's tentacles twitched with what might have been indignation. "The Confederation's technological assessment protocols are quite thorough. It seems improbable that humans could have concealed significant advancements." "Your protocols," the ambassador replied, "primarily focus on propulsion, communication, and energy production technologies. You never specifically asked about our history with weapons development. After all, why would a primitive species have anything to teach the Great Confederation about the art of destruction?" "This is outrageous," sputtered a representative from the Elanian expanse. "You deliberately misled the Confederation." "Did we, though?" The human leaned forward, elbows on the table. "We submitted every required form, attended every mandatory technology exchange, shared our advancements in medicine, agriculture, and environmental rehabilitation. Not once did we lie." We simply didn't volunteer information that wasn't specifically requested. Such omission violates the spirit of Confederation membership, insisted the Chancellor. Does it? The human raised an eyebrow. Interesting perspective. Tell me, Chancellor, when were you planning to inform Earth about the Confederation's secret biological research facilities in the TOA quadrant, the ones developing species-specific pathogens? Or would you prefer I continue pretending we don't know about those either? The council chamber erupted in a cacophony of protests, denials, and the distinct sound of several translation devices overloading from the volume of simultaneous outrage. The human ambassador waited patiently for the noise to subside, examining their fingernails with theatrical indifference. When relative quiet finally returned, the ambassador spoke again, voice calm and measured. Let's skip the performative indignation, shall we? Earth isn't interested in Confederation politics, succession disputes, or resource wars. We simply want to exist without having our colonies vaporized because some species filled out the correct forms. What exactly do humans want? Asked the Chancellor, suddenly looking every moment of his 300-year lifespan. Immediate cessation of all hostilities against human settlements, full reparations for lives and property lost, and formal recognition of Earth's defensive perimeter, including all currently colonized systems. The Vilsack representatives' mandibles clicked rapidly, their equivalent of nervous laughter. And if these demands are not met, more demonstrations. As if on cue, the ambassador's communication device chimed. After glancing at it, the human's expression darkened considerably. It seems, the ambassador said slowly, that the Vilsack Dominion has just launched an attack fleet toward our colony in the Prune system. Apparently they believe our lunar demonstration was our only card to play. How disappointing. The Vilsack representative froze, mandibles mid-click. That's impossible. I received no notification of military operations. Curious how frustrating it is when information doesn't reach you through proper channels, isn't it? The human smiled thinly before turning to address the council at large. Representatives of the Confederation, I suggest you direct your observation arrays toward the Prune system. Educational opportunities like this shouldn't be missed. The council chamber's central holographic projector activated, displaying a real-time feed from Confederation monitoring stations. 8 massive Vilsack warships, their distinctive pincers-like profiles unmistakable, were approaching the small human colony world. Those ships are Annihilator-class dreadnoughts, whispered the Regalian analyst, each capable of reducing a planetary surface to magma. Yes, agreed the human, they are rather impressive, aren't they? The pride of the Vilsack fleet, built to inspire terror throughout the sector, absolutely enormous. The Chancellor turned worried eyes to the ambassador. You seem remarkably unconcerned for someone whose colony is about to be obliterated. Do I? The human checked the communication device again. Ah, perfect timing. The defense fleet has arrived. The council collectively leaned forward, expecting to see a massive human armada emerge to counter the Vilsack threat. Instead, a single small vessel appeared on the display, no larger than a standard Confederation courier ship. Laughter, or the various species equivalents, rippled through the chamber. That's your defensive fleet. The Vilsack representative's confidence visibly returned. One tiny ship against 8 dreadnoughts? Perhaps humans are as primitive as we thought. Size isn't everything, the ambassador replied mildly. Something your species might learn eventually. In fact, humans have a saying, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, but the size of the fight in the dog. The translation system struggled with the idiom, producing a series of confused murmurs throughout the chamber. On the display, the tiny human vessel accelerated toward the Vilsack fleet, which had formed into an attack formation. The dreadnoughts opened fire, energy weapons creating a dazzling light show as they converged on the human ship. Not a single shot connected. The human vessel moved with impossible speed and precision, effortlessly evading the concentrated fire of 8 capital ships. It wove between energy beams as if they were moving in slow motion, occasionally passing so close to a dreadnought that it SEEMED Chinese letter TO skimmed the hull. "Interesting targeting algorithms you have there," the human commented casually. "Very thorough coverage. Unfortunately, they assume your target obeys the same laws of physics that your species understands." The Regalian analyst's tentacles were frantically manipulating scanning equipment. "This is impossible." The human vessel is demonstrating micro-jumps in normal space. The energy requirements alone would be immense. "Yes," the ambassador agreed, "if one were using conventional drive systems. We stopped using those for military applications roughly 200 Earth years ago, long before we met you all." On the display, the human ship completed another series of impossible maneuvers before coming to a stop directly in the center of the Vilsack formation. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, small objects, barely visible on the display, detached from the human vessel and accelerated toward each dreadnought. "Missiles," scoffed the Vilsack representative, "against shields, primitive indeed." "Not missiles," the human corrected, "boarding parties." The council watched in stunned silence as the small objects attached themselves to each dreadnought. Within moments, the massive Vilsack ship stopped firing. One by one, their engines shut down. "What's happening?" demanded the Chancellor. The ambassador shrugged. "Our Marines are having a friendly chat with the Vilsack crews about the concept of proportionate response. I believe they're being quite persuasive." As if to confirm this statement, the communication systems in the council chamber activated, broadcasting a message from the human vessel. "This is Captain Reynolds of the EDF Tenacity. All Vilsack dreadnoughts have been secured with minimal casualties. Crews are being placed in stasis for return to Vilsack territory. Be advised that all weapon systems, propulsion technology, and navigational data are being confiscated for analysis. Ships will be returned to Vilsack space via automated piloting once stripped of military capabilities. Tenacity out." The council chamber fell into shocked silence again, broken only by the sound of the Vilsack representative's mandibles clicking in what appeared to be a panic response. 8 dreadnoughts," the Regalian analyst finally whispered, "neutralized by one ship and a handful of boarding craft without destroying them. How?" The human ambassador leaned back in the chair, looking genuinely relaxed for the first time since entering the chamber. "Humanity's military philosophy differs somewhat from the Confederation's standard. You believe bigger is better, more firepower equals more security. We learned differently through our own bloody history." "What do you mean?" asked the Chancellor. "We discovered that true military superiority isn't about who can build the biggest gun or the most resilient shield. It's about achieving your objectives with precision, efficiency, and when possible, minimal loss of life." The ambassador gestured toward the display, where the dreadnoughts were now being systematically powered down. "Your species build weapons designed to obliterate. We build weapons designed to incapacitate, infiltrate, and control. Your goal is destruction. Ours is victory. There's a difference." "This is a violation of Confederation military protocols," the Elenian representative protested. "The capture of another species' warships is strictly prohibited under Section 42, Paragraph 19 of the Military Conduct Charter." The human finished. "Yes, we're aware. We're also aware of the exemption clause for vessels actively engaged in unauthorized attacks against civilian populations, Section 42, Paragraph 22. You really should read your own regulations more carefully." The Chancellor's gravity disk hummed as he floated closer to the human. These capabilities you've demonstrated, they represent a significant shift in the balance of power within the Confederation. Only for those who intended to attack us, the ambassador replied. For everyone else, nothing has changed. We're still the same humans who have been sharing medical advancements, environmental restoration techniques, and cultural exchanges for the past 53 years. We never wanted to reveal this side of ourselves. Then why develop such technologies at all? Asked the Regalian. The human's expression grew distant, contemplative. Because before we reached the stars, we nearly destroyed ourselves many times over. We learned the hard way that peace isn't maintained by good intentions alone. Sometimes it must be secured by the credible threat of overwhelming response. The ambassador stood, straightening the diplomatic uniform with precise movements. Now shall we return to our original discussion: colony reparations, cessation of hostilities, and recognition of Earth's defensive perimeter. I believe the Vilsack may be more motivated to negotiate in good faith now. The Vilsack representative, mandibles utterly still for perhaps the first time in recorded history, simply nodded. Excellent, the human said, smiling pleasantly once more. And perhaps after that, we can have a more honest conversation about what else humanity has been politely not mentioning. A collective shudder ran through the assembled representatives of the Galactic Confederation as they collectively realized the same unsettling truth. They had no idea what other capabilities these smiling, courteous primitives might be hiding. The most terrifying part: the humans didn't seem particularly eager to show them. Galactic historians would later mark the following week as the shortest, most dramatic power shift in Confederation history. While diplomats stammered through reparation negotiations, the Vilsack Supreme Command, apparently unsatisfied with their first two humiliations, launched a desperate strike against Earth itself. Their reasoning, as intercepted communications later revealed: if we destroy their home world, their colonies will surrender regardless of their technological tricks. The attack fleet emerged from hyperspace to find Earth apparently undefended. No orbital platforms, no defensive grid, just a beautiful blue-green world ripe for conquest. That should have been their first warning. What followed wasn't so much a battle as a technological exorcism. Earth's atmosphere itself seemed to come alive, swarming with microscopic defensive drones that disassembled the Vilsack ships molecule by molecule. Weapon systems simply ceased functioning. Navigation systems rerouted ships into holding patterns. The mighty armada hung impotent in orbit, completely neutralized in under 3 minutes. As the Confederation Council watched the feed in horrified fascination, the human ambassador sipped tea with infuriating casualness. We call it our planetary immune system, they explained between sips, developed after our Third World War. Rather effective, wouldn't you say? When the Regalian asked how such technology could possibly exist without detection, the human reply chilled the chamber. We've had 5,000 years of nearly continuous warfare on Earth. The last century of peace is the anomaly, not the rule. We didn't reveal our defenses for the same reason you don't hand a loaded weapon to a stranger. It's basic survival instinct. The ambassador set down the teacup with a soft clink. And now, perhaps, we can finally have an honest conversation about humanity's place in this galaxy. No more pretending, no more forms in triplicate, just mutual respect between equals. The silence that followed was deafening. 6 months after the Earth demonstration, as it was now delicately called, the Confederation had undergone a remarkable transformation. The bureaucracy remained, naturally, some things transcend species, but interaction with humans had fundamentally changed. The Vilsack, astonishingly, became humanity's most fervent advocates. Their new ambassador explained it with characteristic bluntness. The humans could have exterminated us. Instead, they returned our soldiers unharmed, with a strongly worded note. Such mercy deserves respect. When the Arcturian Chancellor formally recognized Earth's revised status in the Confederation, granting humans a permanent Security Council seat, his speech contained a nugget of uncomfortable truth. We mistook courtesy for weakness, patience for ignorance, and restraint for inability. Our greatest failure wasn't underestimating human technology. It was failing to understand that their civilization wasn't a sign of evolutionary advancement, but a deliberate choice made by a species that had already mastered savagery. The human ambassador accepted the position with typical grace, even bringing a gift. A small terrarium containing an earth rose next to a patch of weeds. Civilization and barbarism, the human explained, grow from the same soil. We simply choose which to water. The Confederation representatives applauded nervously, suddenly very interested in remaining well-hydrated.